Hello and welcome to this overview of Hawaiki Super Glow, a new plugin for Final Cut, Motion, Premiere Pro and After Effects. I'm sure you'll know there are many Glow offerings on the market, but Super Glow takes things to a different level entirely. We wanted to look at the whole Glow concept and see just how far we could take it in terms of the science and the functionality. And we think we've come up with something genuinely unique. So let's dive in. I'll be using this background and applying Super Glow to this graphical overlay element. So let's head over to the effects library and add it to our graphic layer. And even at these default settings, you can see we've got a very impressive result. There are several problems with most built-in glow effects. They're not bright enough, they don't spread out very far, and there's not a lot of control over what glows and what doesn't. Here, for example, is Final Cut's own glow filter. It's really disappointing and gives you no real control. Here's Motion's slightly better offering. It's got a bit more spread, but it's seriously dull and lifeless and lacking in punch. And this is Premiere's Alpha Glow. Again, very little control over the spread, and it looks very rough indeed. The glow in After Effects is a bit better and you've got more control options, but most After Effects artists will know that you need to do a lot of extra compositing to get it looking good. So one of the big differences with Super Glow is that it's not one glow, it's a glow composed of 6 glow elements, and it's this that gives it so much more power and photorealism. So when we want to glow something, there are 4 questions we need to address. What do we want to glow? How much glow do we want? What colour do we want the glow to be? And how do we want to composite the glow? So first let's take a look at the many different options for isolating what we want to glow. I'm going to show you that using these arrays of colour swatches. At the default setting, you can see that only the brighter squares are being glowed. If I increase the threshold, we can limit that to only the brightest squares of all. If we lower it, we can include even the darkest squares. You'll notice we're even glowing the black square. We can adjust the falloff of the threshold selection using the softness control. So this default uses luminance to determine the glow source, but we've got other options as well in the threshold channel menu. Using alpha means that everything with a solid alpha channel gets glowed, but the more transparent squares on the bottom row get glowed less the more transparent they are. But we can also choose to limit the selection using the red, green or the blue channel. So this is what red looks like. This is green. And this is blue. And again, the threshold control still works to adjust that selection to include more or less of everything else. Note, of course, that white will always be included in red, green and blue because it is comprised of 100% of red, green and blue. But we can get much more precise about the selection process by coming down to the matte section. As you can see, we've got a wide choice of matte options and a whole set of controls for adjusting the matte result. I won't go into detail on all of this, except that I do want to highlight the HSV mode. This brings up a colour keyer, and that allows us to pick a particular colour from the screen to use as the glow source. And it's a very quick and easy way of working, with lots of control over how the key is set up. So now let's move on to the question of how much glow we want. Again, there are multiple options for this, some of which relate more to spread and others to intensity. Firstly, as I mentioned, Super Glow isn't one glow, it's 6 glows, which are exponentially related to each other. So the glows slider here gives us a simple way of reducing the number of glows that are being used. As I reduce the glow count, the glow spreads out less and is more focused around the source area. This is a handy way of improving performance if you don't need a very wide glow. You'll notice there's also a radius control, but for the most part you shouldn't need to touch this because the other controls let you affect the spread of the glow more effectively. We can also increase or decrease the spread of the glow using the falloff control. And we can use the brightness control down here in the color section to increase the fogging effect of a wide glow even further to get a result that's very bright indeed. The amount control does what it says, and it's a simple way of increasing the intensity of the glow. And again, down here in the color section, the gain control does something similar. Next, we come on to the question of what color we want the glow to be. And again, there's a wealth of powerful options. The simplest route is to use the RGB controls down here in the color section, and they allow us to mix our own glow color very easily. We can also adjust the saturation if we want our glow to be more or less vibrant. If we want the core of our glow to be a different color from the color of the outer areas, we can use the two-color gradient option here. Increasing the mix control brings this option into play. I'll make the outer color blue, just so we can see this more clearly. And now I can use the start and end sliders to determine the spread between the two colors. Increasing the start parameter pushes the core color further out. Reducing the end parameter brings the outer color closer to the core. So what's happening there is that each of the 6 glow elements is getting a slightly different color by interpolating between the two chosen colors. However, we can take this principle much further if we open up the glows section. Here, we can control each of the glow elements separately. Again, we can use the mix control to bring each of these options into play as required. If we wanted, we could give each one a completely different color of our choosing. As a side note here, you'll notice that we can even choose to vary the radius, gain, and opacity for each glow element, which gives us an almost infinite level of subtle adjustment. In the RGB channel section, we have even more control over the color. The red, green, and blue amount controls allow you to adjust the relative mix of the source and glow for each channel, which gives an astonishing level of precision to the result. But the really interesting feature of this section is the chromatic aberration option. Chromatic aberration is a real-world lens effect that prismatically splits the light coming from very bright sources. In Superglow, we can adjust the X and Y position of each channel independently to create this prismatic splitting effect. It's a great way of adding extra photorealism to your glows, along with even more appearance of brightness. A good starting point to try is to move one channel left, another right, and the third channel up or down. A lot will depend on the colours you're starting with, and you might see some shift in the apparent position of the source, and that's perfectly natural. Obviously, you can create some really wild effects in this way, but for the most part, you'll want to make only very subtle adjustments. Finally, we come on to the question of how we want our glow to be composited. Up here, we've got 2 different compositing menus. The first determines how the 6 glow elements are composited against each other. The second menu determines how the glow is composited with the source. For most purposes, you'll find that the defaults give you the best results, but some of the more unusual blend modes can produce some striking and original effects. It's worth pointing out that neither of these menus relates to how a glowed layer is composited with any background layer. For that, you'll need to use the layer's own blending options. And you'll often find that add, screen, or linear dodge give a better result than the default of normal or over. There are additional compositing options in the dedicated compositing section. I won't go into too much detail except to show you one especially useful thing. The Source over Effect switch lets you composite the source object back over the top of the glow, using the normal or over blend operation. This is very handy for creating a more backlit effect, and I want to show you one interesting trick you can use it for. If I come back up to the Color section, here where it says Source Color, and increase the mix control to bring that into play, you'll notice that I'm overriding the colors of the source with my new color. If I make that color black, it creates this great looking eclipse effect. So just a few technical details before we wrap up. Super Glow, of course, is fully compatible with any high dynamic range workflow, but if you're working in standard dynamic range, then you'll often want to limit the very bright results that it's capable of producing. To do that, simply enable the clamp output switch, and the glow will still look very bright, but it will be clamped to legal range. One final point to note is that the bounding box for the glow is determined by the bounding box of the source layer, and if that happens to be smaller than your overall project dimensions, it will lead to the glow being cropped to the bounding box. To get around that, all you need to do is to reformat the layer to make it the same as the project dimensions. In After Effects, you can do that by pre-composing, in Premiere by nesting, in Final Cut Pro by creating a compound clip, and in Motion by creating a fixed resolution group. Then, when Super Glow is applied to the reformatted element, the glow will now fill the frame. So, as you've seen, Super Glow is a hugely powerful and innovative glow product with an enormous range of possibilities, and we hope you'll enjoy creating some amazing looks with it. Super Glow is available exclusively through Effects Factory, which means you can download a free trial version to try it out for yourself right now. Thanks for watching.